Hey, I'm John. I'm a traveling pop producer, traveling the country and making music along the way with so many incredible people, and I can't wait to unpack really the core elements of what makes such an edgy, crunchy pop song. This is a song for an artist debut album, Indira Bella. It's gonna be absolutely incredible, and this is something we're preparing for our studio sessions in New York in May. So I want to unpack every single sound going on here and how it accumulates into this Rei Ami-esque, edgy, sexy, I own the world energy, how it all comes together. So let's go into it. So I'm gonna start a little out of order. Typically, let's talk about drums. We're gonna talk about bass first, because that is the driver of this song for sure. Very simple bass line, but there's a couple cool things going on, especially when we get to moments like this. And what we're doing, if you're not a super music theory person, it's okay, like 10 seconds. So we're doing a lot of Phrygian dominant work here with the harmonic choices we made. So we're sitting on an E chord, and then we're just lightly touching an F, both as major chords, to get that, I think, what a lot of Western culture calls Eastern music sound into our music. And when the 808 does that movement, it sounds really gnarly. And we're using one from Anna 2's synth, which is a plugin I get in the Slate Digital Bundle, starting on the band 808 as my starting 808 there. So that's the foundation of the 808 and how I'm driving that into the track. You can see I carved out a bunch of mids just to subdue it a little bit. So that's the 808. It's just hammering that low note. We're getting a little implication of the half step going on here. But because the 808 has a bend as well, it's a little difficult to tell. Da, na, 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 na. But that's kind of the point, I guess, right? So you have a little bendy 808 going on there. It's really great. And the kick is pretty closely following it if we solo both of these guys out. Pretty closely. So just a couple of variations there, but again, the kick comes in really nicely, and it's a little chunky and less round and clear as I would do in like a typical pop song. We have two samples going on here. We have this cleaner one right here, and we have this really crunchy boy underneath it. Right, without that, it'd be way too clean, way too pristine for this kind of genre. So we dirtied up that kick to make sure that it felt very fitting for the edginess that we want out of it. And then we have three sounds going on for our backbeat, which I'm just really excited about. One of my favorite things of the song. So let's check those out. We have two claps and a sonar thing going on. Here's the two claps. This one, it's a very soft clap, but it has a little bit of tail to it. And this one, very quick into the point. So together, you get that nice stank to it. And so you can also see, I mean, really the wild thing going on here is the distortion, because without the distortion, again, it's going to sound too clean. Without, flat, bad. And again, now when we have that distortion, it really just like kicks it up a little bit, and it sounds really nice. Now, the magic of this backbeat is in the sonar, which is not really a traditional backbeat sound, right? Typically, our snares don't have pitch to them like that, but this one does, and it's freaking incredible, and we love it. So this sample originally, without this extra reverb, is a little too short. So I added a mono reverb up the middle to keep it really focused, just to add a little more tail to it. That's really nice. Again, just gives a boom instead of bum, and that just helps open it up. So now we have two things going on with our hi-hats. We have the main hi-hat, really a layered hi-hat here, but just pounding the quarter note, not the quarter note, the 16th note. Oh my goodness. And then I have a second hi-hat where I just loaded in a bunch of sounds, and I just went crazy. And I was literally just doing this on the drum pads. And that was literally how I built this part, was me doing this all over the place. It was kind of chaotic. And so I found a pattern from me jamming around that was really cool as a loop, and then modified it a little bit to get it exactly where it felt right. And that became this cool layered thing. Now we have both hi-hat patterns, where the first one, that's just the same note, kind of gives us some grounding, and then the wild sprinkles are wild and sprinkly, which is kind of the point. So those are the drums. And then now we have some really cool like ambience floating around in the track. which I have to give tons of credit to how Murder Melodies sits with this stuff, because it did a lot of the heavy lifting to make it sound cool. Because one thing I know with this kind of crunchy pop is sounds are never typically what they are normally, right? You need to do something to them so they sound mangled and messed up. Like it fit on the Soul playlist on Spotify. That's really the barometer here. So without the Murder Melodies, with it, do we love it? I think we love it. And again, it's just a great plugin to like mangle things and mess with them. The tonality, the shape, the length, the space, the crunch, the grit, the brilliance in a really fast way. So that is how I've really built that harmonic foundation with the chords, but I had to do something kind of unusual to make sure that the ambience sit really well. So you can see right here, I have chord, chord, a quick chord, and then another chord. So, and the issue was, if I did da da on the same thing with that long tail, it would sound really mushy. So I had to separate out that chord here. So then I had to make sure to automate the volume to turn off on the next chord. So that way you have a clean start for the beginning of the progression. Just those little things, because again, like a Rei Ami track, there's so much chaos. We also have to manage that chaos and make sure to keep it tight so nothing's too much stepping on each other in the track. Now, before we get into the weird stuff, I want to show you the cool plucks that we did and the sound design behind it. Reminds me of the song Caffeine by, I can't remember the artist's name, and I'm terrible. So, first thing is you have a pluck. This very dark round pluck, which I believe is from, oh yeah, I was starting to accumulate presets a long time ago. This is one that I pulled in. It reminded me of a pluck from a Lizzo song, Jerome, interestingly enough. And so I wanted to add bounce to it because it was just a little stale without the delay. It doesn't bounce. Add a little bit of delay on that bad boy, and then my move whenever I'm trying to think about spicing up a synth is I'm going to do the octave. I'm going to go up, down an octave, and then I'm going to blend them in on separate tracks. That's typically my approach, and that's what I did here. So together. So full, so beautiful, without being muddied. Then I added in this layer, I called it the stanky pattern. Something I've been obsessed with recently is taking a sound that really shouldn't be there, but the harmonics are really interesting and intriguing. So I'll like make sure to sneak it in there a little bit just because it adds so much fun and intrigue into a stack of a sound. Check it out without that sound in there. And with it. There's a little more complexity and a little more intrigue, and I like that, and especially for this genre of music. Now, let's get into the weird stuff, because you know there is no edgy pop song that's complete without really odd sampled sounds, incorporated sounds into the track. So there's a bunch of weird stuff happening here. The first one being this sound going into the chorus. And so I did some crazy stuff to it. First thing was Little Altar Boy. You know the guy was coming up at some point in a video about making music. Pitch it and formatted it a ton to be way rounder, and then distorted it to heck with the saturation and clarity in the room there. Sounds wild. Then I also have this interesting flute loop that I found and cut up a little bit, which I had to cut to find the right notes and make sure it worked with the chord progression. But it worked out really, really cool, and it provides some interesting dissonance under the track. Because it's not quite perfectly in tune, but again, a little out of tune, this kind of song, we're gonna allow it, and we're gonna be happy about it. And then we have this guy here, where I took this kind of chant vocal as a sample off of Splice. And so I compressed it to heck, and then I tuned it to make sure it stayed in key, because he wasn't quite where I needed him to be with the melody he sang, which is fine. I forgive him for not recording the sample exactly how I needed it. So I wanted to tighten that up and make sure it was on point. And then again, I mangled the vocal so it doesn't seem like it was just sang by a person. And then from there, some pretty chunk EQ to clean out the bottom. Tons of reverb to push it back. And then tremolator to just make it a wild, bouncy boy. Oh, so cool. I love that thing so much. And again, when we're talking about this edgy pump, there's so many weird sounds. And when I talk about weird sounds, I'm not just saying like Foley. I'm saying just random stuff that's thrown in the track that just takes your ear on a ride. So that's why I'm doing all this crazy sound design. It's not for no reason. It's because this is what we want to add some intrigue as we're kind of doing these anthemic vocals on top. I'm not going to play them for you because they're just demoed. I'm so excited about it, and I love what we created for this song. And then, of course, I took the whole concept of bringing in weird Foley sounds even further and got some hand percussion, found bits that worked well, and factor it in to the end of the section here. So yeah, just little things like that. I think that really make it a surprise. So we're creating a focused 808 progression, building a beat on top of that vibes off of it. All we needed was a couple of harmonic elements, because with this genre, the vocals will take up so much space. We're going to do so many cool ad-libs. We really just have a beat, 808, a pad element, a lead element, and then tons of weird things all around that take it into a completely different universe of intrigue and excitement. So we leave a ton of room for the vocals. And that is the core of how we put the song together and how you could maybe think about approaching something for your next song, however you do go about it. So I hope you really enjoyed the journey. I know I certainly did, and I love sharing this stuff. If you can't tell the glow on my face, I really, really love talking about this. So hope you have a great day. Thank you for your time. Now get out there, work hard, and remember, you're just one song away. Cheers.